this together in my head and hope it comes off all right. But the idea is, the way that, I don't know if you heard the title that Joe gave it, it was called The Road to Nowhere. And where that came from was back when the Casey Highway first opened. We heard in Wayne County, people over here were calling it the Road to Nowhere, which, you know, didn't sit too well in Wayne County because we think we're somewhere. But we also feel, I mean, we're one of your counties that you cover genealogically. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe we need to tell you a little bit more about Wayne County to get you over it. And one of the things is the canal part, which I'll bring up. But what I'm thinking of doing is, first of all, I want to ask you, how many people think you had ancestors in Wayne County? Ancestors in Wayne County. That's what I expected, not too many. However, there are ancestors in Wayne County. You might be surprised. You might be surprised that you do have some. But rather than talking a lot about genealogy tonight, which you're probably not interested in, it's going to be kind of travel, things that we'd like you to come and see. Not that bad. I was sitting here, I just noticed this map, and I just thought it was very interesting that the outline of the coal field ends exactly where Wayne County begins. This would be Clifton Township out here. That has only coal in Wayne County, and that's not mine. It's not enough to mine. So we're totally, what type of coal ties us together historically, because you had to move the coal through Wayne County to get it to market. So that's what we have in common. And we'll talk a little bit about the gravity railroad, the D&H canal, and those things, because if you're at all interested, and you really should be, because a lot of your ancestors and ours came to us on those two engineered miracles. In Wayne County, the canal was done primarily by Irish immigrants. Some of you have Irish ancestors. There were some Germans. There were a lot of other people. But they are the same Irish who maybe stayed and worked on the railroad, who came over and worked in the mines. So we do have a shared history through coal. But where we diverge is the other parts. Maybe we can just take a drive, we'll make it work, from the Lackawanna border across at least the Route 6 part of Wayne County, and tell you about some of the things we have to offer that are worth a trip, worth driving over. And of course, it begins, let me include carbon here, because it starts with carbon, gravity railroad, coal is a gravity railroad, put it on the railroad. And are you all familiar with the gravity railroad? What it did? I just wanted to make sure. Yes, I'll try. I'm just a poor little thing.
And the gravity railroad used to go to Archibald, right?
To where?
The gravity railroad used to go up to Archibald, right?
Not the one that we're talking about. There were other gravity railroads. This one went from Carbondale over to somewhere inside Matthew. The gravity railroads, probably can't see it from here, but again, looking at that. It went, this gravity railroad, which was in Delaware and Hudson, went from Carbondale over the mountain to Homestead.
You're talking about the D&H railroad that set the gravity.
No,
The D&H pushed down.
No, but it was the D&H gravity railroad.
Right, the D&H railroad pushed down from the gravity.
Oh, maybe, I don't know. Gravity is all we were really concerned with. And it was a railroad, and we'll get into the Sturbridge Lion part of it, which is another famous thing. But the gravity railroad went over the mountain, took the coal, stopped at Waymart, Stockton, and Waymart is what I would say is the first place to go if you're looking for a historic site to visit in Wayne County. And that would be the gravity station in Waymart, which is owned by the Waymart Area Historical Society. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. It's totally restored as a museum, meeting place outside. It has they won't call it restored because it doesn't have enough old parts, but a open-air gravity railroad car that you can go and visit, and they're constantly making improvements, adding artifacts in their museum. It's a really neat place. And,
Thank you, Howard.
well, we left off in Waymart, and we're not going to get through all of Waymart because we have so much to tell you. However, the Waymart gravity station, which I mentioned, also a block or so down the street is the D&H steam station, which is privately owned by Jane Varco of the Waymart Area Historical Society, but she's always willing to give it to her if you ask. And that's interesting too. That went right through her family's property, so she owns it. But anyway, then the gravity went on, went through Compton, came on over, and up and down and up and down. The planes, which were all cars brought up and down by the stationary engines, brought up the plane. And in Honesdale, as we said, they dumped coal. And amazing, we have pictures of the back of our building, which is the D&H Canal Company building office. The days of coal, when they would bring it over in the wintertime when the canal was not running, and it would be sorted by something you actually see on the maps, they sorted it when they took it off the railroad and kept it there over the winter and then loaded up the canal boats in the spring with the canal. And actually we're going backwards because the canal was the first idea and the railroad came afterwards. But the Delaware and Hudson Canal Building Office is where we have our museum, our society, a research library, many exhibits, including currently an exhibit by the painter Howard Becker, very well known in our area, and very lovely pictures of the area. We have, Faces in Clay, which is prehistoric Indian relics. We have the DAR, if you're interested in genealogy. They're celebrating their 100th anniversary this year in Wayne County. We have a walk through Wayne County, and this is in our glass, our Wayne County glass, which we're really famous for. I know you're all probably familiar with the Dorfman Museum in White Mills, but we have a pretty extensive glass collection of all Wayne County glass. There were many cutting shops besides Dorfman and Wayne County. Honesdale glass, O'Connor glass, and we have some wonderful examples, including Dorfman, but ours is not as large as theirs. And our building itself is pretty old, pretty nice, becoming business. There are a lot of other things in Honesdale. We manage the Old Stone Jail, which is a jail built in 1859, was the county jail until 1935, and it's a dungeon. It's fun. We have guided tours first Saturday of every month, warm weather, because it's too cold to go in there. It really is stone, very thick stone, holds the heat, holds the color.
You said first Saturday of every month?
First Saturday of every summer, our warm weather month, through October. It's 10 to 1, yeah. It's free. I mean, you can make a donation, but tours are free. And kids love it. They really do. And then the other thing that we have near Honesdale is in Beach, toward Beach Lake, is the Bethel School, one-room schoolhouse, which is exactly the way they walked away from it in the 1950s. And it's built in around 1872. It has all of the furniture and accoutrements and so on of a one-room school. And unfortunately, we've had the last open house for this summer. In the summer, one Sunday a month. It's open from 1 to 4, and there's also always a special program. So I think we do have a calendar. I think we probably some this year. We don't this year. Moving farther east, and I'm going fast because I don't want to White Mills. We talked about that a couple of times. In addition to the Dorfman Museum up on the hill, and that's also a wildlife sanctuary. And they also have summer concerts, Saturdays and summer outdoor concerts, which are really very nice. You can take a picnic, dinner, and sit on the grass, bring your chair or whatever, and listen to nice music. But the museum itself, if you haven't been, magnificent. Filled with Dorfman glass, which was among the most beautiful and expensive in this country or in the world. But now, they've added new attractions to our place. A few years ago, they opened the Workers' Cottage, which is it's an actual workers' cottage it's been furnished. These were Christian Dorfman, who owned the glass works, imported a lot of, he was from Alsace-Lorraine, imported a lot of workers, and built them cottages based on the the type of roof for it. It's very, I was going to say very unique, it's bad, but it's a sloped roof that you don't see on American cottages in the town. There are a few of them left, and one of them has been restored to the way it was in the 1850s. And that is just fascinating. And again, that's open from time to time. You have to either call them, pre-schedule, or so that's worth seeing. Then there is the Dorfman office space, which has been restored very nicely by a man, well, from New York, but he lives locally. It used to be the paymaster's office, it's just been nicely restored and open to the public. Next to it, just this year, as I put it, the Dorfman cutting shop, which in addition to having some beautiful glass, not all Dorfman, will be doing actual demonstrations of cutting. They're not, now they just have models. We went in there, there's a boiler room that has double-decker furnaces, like I would say, probably about halfway up that big, they're huge. That, of course, that they have to use for glass boiler and stuff. So that's now open. You can actually go in. It will be completely finished in a couple of years, but well worth it. And then the next thing along Route 6 is what Joe was talking about. This Saturday, we're having the grand opening of our canal park on Lock 39. We've owned for quite a few years now several acres along the canal, a lock, the original locks. And then we bought an old farmhouse and got more acres from that too. It was built around 1820, so it predates the canal, which was opened in 1828. So it was a farmhouse, but a very nice farmhouse. Our architect says it's a Connecticut house, that somebody built down here. And we weren't having many Connecticut houses built in 1829. But the outside has been completely restored, it's repainted, and it will eventually be a museum when the state comes through with more grants. But the outside has now been completed as a parking lot, paths, walking paths, biking paths, and so on. And the grand opening is this Saturday. It's all free, except for whatever food you may buy. And it's going to be a super event, and you're all invited, everybody's invited, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Demonstrations, blacksmithing, quilting, all kinds of things. And some items for sale, but it's mainly free that you're very welcome to come. And then moving on to Holly, they've just recently restored another gravity coach. I should have mentioned that back in our museum, we have a luxury gravity coach that was designed for the executives. Not just a regular, so it's all locked walls. Really nice. Then Holly, as I said, has it. And then going on almost by Cody, the silk mill, the old silk mill, Lambert silk mill, has been totally restored by local people. Now houses Lackawanna College, the Wayne County edition of Lackawanna College. Wonderful shops and a coffee shop on the outside, a separate building. And it's called Cocoon because it's where they kept the silkworms. There's a silk factory. And that's, it's just really nice, a nice little coffee shop where you can get snacks. But the building itself is a very large bluestone building. You might remember it was the Sherman Underwear Mill at one time, Sherman Underwear Factory. It became Castle Antique. Now it's the Holly Silk Mill and a really classy dress. With businesses, art galleries, organic food, a gym, beauty parlor. So it's a great place to visit, just go in and wander, you don't have time. And that, we've come to the end of Wayne County, because Pike County starts right outside. But we have loads of other things that aren't on Route 6. I don't even really have time to go into it. But does anybody have any questions? I'd like to tell you about the history of Wayne County. Right down Route 6, all the way Route 6, go through Homestead and White Mills. It's about a mile this side of home. You can't miss it. There's a big sign, and it's a big red house, and it's on the right. Oh, yeah, right. But it's at this point you can't miss it because of the big red house and the big sign. Well, there were a lot of lots. There's none, I don't think there's any restored house. No. And ours is not, ours is the way it was then. I mean, it's been cleaned up, the brush has been taken out, and so on. It's been cleaned up as much as we can. To have it actually working is another whole process. Yeah, it's, first of all, you have to keep the water in the canal, and that's a bigger problem than it leaks out. I don't know, there's down in Kimball's, it may be Kimball's, that's restored rock tender's house.
Yeah.
And he has a double lock. I have never seen that. I've walked it. You can walk from one to the other, but again, his one has not been, it's not restored to work anymore. The only ones I've seen that even try were at the Never Seen Museum in New York State, where it tried to float a boat and water. So when the canal was running, it was constantly being fed by feeders. We know, there's one of the ponds, Hankins Pond, is like almost a canal, miles and miles away. The canal company built these ponds or reservoirs. I live across from one. It was a dam, and they dammed up that creek and fed into the canal because they were earth. And the water was nice. So that is the reason why. So everybody says they love to do it. It's so weird. But the mechanics of it, the engineering, you'd have to almost, I don't know, and then you're kind of destroying the integrity of the rock, but build a barrier at each end, and then you can float the water. As far as I know, no one except the legislature has tried that, and they have trouble with it constantly. Yeah.
In the warfare class at Carol long time ago, which mentioned other glass places.
Yes.
What's the draw to have glass places, for want of a better word, up in that area?
Well, because that's where it was made. White Mills was a major, partly because of the canal. We had a speaker last week, well, Kurt Reed, maybe a lot of you know him, and he spoke about Dorfman and the canal, how actually they stopped using the canal when the railroad came through. But that was the original idea. Well, here, they can bring sand in, which they needed, on the canal, and then they could ship their glass out. And also, he liked to spend place. I mean, there's really, I don't think any, supposedly he came up for his house. Kurt says, don't believe the word of it, and I really don't. He had his idea, his eye on a place that was ideal for making glass. And this happened to be during the Civil War. And there were the draft riots and so on. And Kurt's theory is he just wanted to get away and saw that this would be a great place to make glass. He still had those factories in Greenpoint. He came here to Alsace Lorraine, to Brooklyn, to that house. But it was from about the mid-1860s up finally closed in the 1920s. It was big business. And as I said earlier, there were many, many other cutting shops besides Dorfman. And we had Holland, Rosedale, there was Red Compton, over 70 boxes here. And they mostly use Dorflinger blanks. It's one reason it's very hard to tell real Dorflinger, because the blanks were Dorflinger in each of the cutting shops. Did their own designs, and some of them beautiful, really nice, but it's not real Dorflinger. You might, Hank Loftus is speaking at our society last Sunday, August, and his topic is going to be identifying Dorflinger. And he's an expert He was one, very few people are recognized as high school sergeant. Anybody else?
And what was that place you were mentioning that you could actually like witness the little blacksmith at work?
That would be this Saturday, and the canal, that's only for the one day.
Oh, okay.
The man who's doing it is actually a sculptor, but he sculpts big, metal works, and he's going to be, I guess, showing the horse, I don't know. But he's volunteer, so we're not turning him down.
Was the canal the reason that Homestead
Yeah,
started?
yeah, there was no house before. It was built, let's see, canal opened in about 1828. Homestead was maybe 1825, 26, you started seeing buildings for the workers, because people, coming in from all over. If you've noticed as you drive by the hotel one, there before you turn down Main Street, that is the site of the original hotel in Homestead. In fact, it's kind of funny, this brick building was built around the old frame in the 1890s, and then they just took it out, these and we're left with this one. So that site has been a hotel since 1846. And it was the center of town, there was nothing there. And they had, the trees they cut down there were still big stumps, so they couldn't even walk down the street without hearing all the stumps. And that was the post office, it was the bar, the hotel, it was the place where the legislators met, when they were finally elected. And it just grew up very quickly. Somewhere in there, I have some statistics about the age. It was very young population. They only had 2 people over 60 in the 1830 census. And a lot of kids, more men than women. But it was a boom town. From Philip Cohn, who was the president of the P&H Canal Company. He also was at one time mayor of New York City. And he did make a visit up here once or twice. And he in Washington Irving, he was a friend of his. And in fact, that's what some people don't know about Homestead Water, but it has a very bad reputation. And I found a story in our newspaper about the trip of Washington Irving. And he got very sick after he got home, and the paper said, and he was blamed on the Homestead Water. Did he die? I didn't know he died. Well, eventually. But anyway, Philip Cohn, he came here once or twice. Of course, that's Hawley was named, or Irad Hawley, who was the president of the Pennsylvania Coal Company. As far as we know, he never said Hawley, so at least Mr. Hawley did. But it was strictly business. And there again, the story of the Sturgis Line, that was brought over here by the canal company to run on the gravity rail. Didn't work out. It didn't work out. But that's one thing we have, our wonderful record, which actually is a working record. It has built in Chicago on floor in 1934. And then it was again steamed in 1939. We've just found a picture of it actually in the steam. 1939 is not a great picture, but we thought about running it a couple of years ago, but it was just these days, to steam it, it's a huge steam engine, all kinds of inspections, licenses, engineering, and then, as somebody once pointed out, what if it blows up? It's your big attraction. So we decided against it, but it is a working.
It's not that tree around behind me, right?
No, unfortunately, that's the excursion trail, and it hasn't run for the last couple of years. We keep hearing that it's going to come out, and so a lot of complications. Who owns it? The Chamber of Commerce ran the excursion, but somebody else owns the trail and the trains. And now they're saying the trains are too old and to replace them. So I don't know. We hope it will come out. It's a good attraction.
You were the first residents in the area. What nationality were they?
Mostly New England, English, but they came from New England. That would be, actually the first residents in Wayne County, or the first communities, were Damascus in 1855, 17, I'm sorry, 55, and they came from Connecticut. Then there was the Wallen Hawk settlement down in what's now Petco. They came over later. They were
Oh, are they farmers?
mostly
Farmers.
now, I shouldn't say mostly farmers because for many years, the biggest industry, moneymaker, was lumber.
Lumber?
Before they could farm, they had to cut down the trees. So, and they had wonderful trees in the old days. For instance, rafting. What they would do is cut down the trees, originally for the mast, palm trees. And they would make rafts out of them and float them down to Trenton or Philadelphia or Delaware. And then they'd sell the whole thing. You know, lumber and walk back to Damascus Township. Later on, they would take cut lumber down. There were no lumber mills up here, and they float that down. And that was big business for a while. Almost every farmer, his cash crop was lumber, up until maybe the 1870s, 80s, that began to be lumber. Right? And then also tanning. Lots of them. Tanneries were huge. I mean, they imported hides from South America for the tanneries. Again, big business, until landlocked trees disappeared. And they had what they called acid factories. And that contributed, whatever it was, as a chemical, I don't know, contributed to the making of rubber. But then during World War I, they came up with artificial rubber. So they didn't need it anymore. So yeah, later on farming became the biggest. When the railroads came through, when you shipped your goods, before that, you know, you had perishables, milk, vegetables, and there was no place to sell them. And now, pretty much tourism. But I mean, we still have farms. They're not what they used to be. Anybody else? Have I convinced anybody to come visit? That's our goal, yeah.
The guy that's the last was giving their sentence.
I block is a week from zero months. No, he's coming here next
Raymond
month.
every week.
It's half block.
At the hotel.
He's talking about something else. Yeah, but he's talking about class. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday. Plus, Sundays at the museum. That's a free lecture. Every Sunday at 2 o'clock. Except this Sunday when the guy canceled out the last minute. But yeah, it's a different subject. It's whatever somebody wants to come in and talk about. But I'm gonna, I think we'll probably be talking September 1st because somebody canceled about our photo collection. So you can choose almost any subject you want and publicize it. People are just stopping this.
Still talking about the Casey Harrison. I was wondering, when did they start building it, when did it end? What's the significance of White's cost?
I'm sure, what's the significance of White's Crossing? When did they start the case in highway? Yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of whites in this area.
White's Crossing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it was a real, no, we have whites
place
in
in
Lake County.
Mayberry.
We have whites Valley.
place in Mayberry.
There are a lot of whites in this area.
I did a Google
Remember
search
we used
on
to
the
put it
Casey
up
Highway.
there?
I
We
only
still
have
do it
some
every once in a
technical
while.
information.
It's a pet mile.
But in 1963 is when they first planned the highway, whether how many years later it took to make it happen. Because there were 16 or 17 routes that they were going to, they weren't so sure they wanted to go on the side of the mountain. Figured out some way to bypass the business group.
But it's not the case of the government.
Governor Casey, they got the Governor Casey.
No, I mean, when the-
Rendell, Governor Rendell was going.
He was already out of office.
Governor Rendell was the one that
Okay.
governor when they did it. But the thing that interests me about, not only like one, but Wayne County, is a number of famous people that lived in Wayne County, like Zane Grey, that's the next one, isn't it?
Actually, quite
Is that Old Shanley? And Zebulon Pike, all of a sudden he's in Pike County.
I
The
do
guy that said
know,
the Western man, he's in Pike County. Holy cow.
I do know that, what's her name, the Ezekiel Molly Brown's husband was from there.
Yes, that's the one. He went out to Colorado, never had
She married up there?
Was she there?
No, yeah,
No,
it's Debbie
no,
Reynolds'
they
I
lady.
had heard that.
No, I think they met at Betty Hospital, or that's right. Oh, what's her name? Yeah, that's a little tricky because she was the second one. Samuel Harris is buried. Yeah, first treasurer. Rick Smith, their assistant one. His house is still there.
I mean, actually put the 1 foot in. Okay, look, the guy who wrote the music to that was named Brian. No. I met with him, Joe Breyer and Joe Breyer.
But we were not, earlier, we're not fancy.
Our wall, yeah, the offer that
Oh, yeah, our wall was really,
General manager.
yeah.
So we're really blessed, we have a lot of famous people, so your turn is coming.
Doesn't, the county report have to put something about the private
Oh.
no.
Oh, now, yes.
Yeah.
Since, yeah, his brother was both.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen
Governor
him.
Pinchot, that's not the county.
Now, I will say, Pike was part of Williams in 1814, so we don't claim anything after 1814.
We got the Mad Anthony Wayne.
Maybe he was, and there are some, what, 6 Williams in the United States. And we can't figure out why suddenly Michigan, New York. And we constantly get calls and emails from
As you said earlier, in New England, there's travel, actually Route 80 or 84 rather, that was,
and they believed they were Connecticut.
it was complicated. Yeah.
I mean, they had no idea. It was
Michael Mott, who was the father of the Mack brothers, Augustus, they started the Mack Truck Company up here in Mount Top. In fact, there's a housing development there called Mack Estates, which used to be Mack's house, and the state representative, he lived there. No, anyhow, this guy, this state representative company, he lived there for the longest time. The place just became. But the Mack Truck Company was first started. Mack Car started in the south side of Scranton with the Mack Car Truck Company. And the one guy, Fred Waltz, who was their chassis maker, because the chassis were made out of wood, he was a carpenter. The reason I know so much wasn't my wife.
Yeah, I was gonna say this.
Wasn't my wife.
Look at him, all right.
But
And then the Waltzes came from Lincoln. Some of them did.
yeah.
But so it's like, we got a lot from New England because they thought they were just moving west in Connecticut.
They followed up later on became Route 84. And some of them stopped down in Homeless, some came right across Forsyth, New York, and came down and settled up.
Northern Wayne County, I would say, in the old days, when it was 70% of the there were some Irish farmers. There's a little group, but mostly they were just Connecticut. And the people who settled Homestead were more likely to be from New York or New Jersey. They were the entrepreneurs. They weren't farmers. They were stop businesses. Take advantage of
Really blessed, we had a great heritage. It's any one of the 6 counties in Northeast Pennsylvania. And I think we pick up, so we did it, our first newsletter, we put in all the first that happened in Northeastern Pennsylvania, movie cameras, things, movie theater, that Ritz Theater is still going strong.
yes, in Hollywood.
That's how
In the
it's
summer,
like this.
it's summer, it's out there. Put on a show, something.
You don't have to travel hours and hours to go on a vacation.
And as I said, it's also like the wildflower concerts, so every Saturday during the.
And has some great artists there to work with. You can sit on the grass.
If you don't want to, you can bring a chair.
Like I say, it's all over here. Anyhow, thank you all for
Two
listening.
Zane, right here on the list there.
Next time here, we're going to find out everything about the Casey Highway, what